Am I the asshole for how I reacted when my husband threw away our daughter's kitchen tools that I bought her? My daughter Liz, 15, loves cooking. She began discovering new meals after she became vegan. She was a very picky eater in the past. I encourage her to cook her own food, but my husband hates it, although she still sits at the table with us. But he thinks that her having different food on the table is disrespectful to the family and she should just be eating what we eat. I thought that was ridiculous and asked him to just let her be. He got more agitated and said that Liz wasn't allowed to use any tool in our kitchen if she decides to cook for herself, since he paid for everything the kitchen has. I fought back on his decision, but he stood firm. I decided to just go out and buy her all the tools she needed to make her meals. She buys her own groceries, so I don't have to worry about that. Last night I was out and Liz called me crying, saying my husband threw away all the tools I got her to prevent her from cooking. I was fuming. I went home and started arguing with him, telling him those weren't his tools. He argued that Liz was cooking in his kitchen and he already didn't authorize that. I blew up and went off on him, telling him he's ridiculous and was just looking for excuses to prevent Liz from cooking. He yelled that Liz is acting spoiled and that I repeatedly let her disrespect us and table manners by letting her cook her own food instead of being grateful and eating what's already on the table. We fought some more, then I went upstairs. He followed me, saying I'm avoiding responsibility and that I'm encouraging Liz to become selfish and egotistical instead of appreciating what's in front of her. I refused to talk to him and he said I should apologize for reacting by yelling at him and calling him names. Edit. 1. Why I let my daughter buy her own groceries. 2 reasons. 1 is that she uses the money I give her to buy groceries. And 2 is that she knows what she needs to cook meals and has more knowledge with vegan products, so she shops by herself, and sometimes I take her with me if it's a new place. 2. Is there a cultural factor? We're from Latin America and my husband is the sole provider for the family. 3. Why can't the whole family eat vegan? Because I have younger kids and they don't eat vegetables. Honestly, I'd make that man regret his words. If Hess demanding you all eat the same food, then I'd go out and buy all vegan food. Make him adapt to his daughter's diet and maybe after a few meatless nights he'll realize he prefers letting her cook her own food. She's 15, that is a valuable and essential life skill he's preventing her from developing. Why is he so jealous of her eating vegan food? I'd completely stop buying animal products and fill the fridge and cabinets with all vegan options that my daughter would eat, then start cooking that food for him. Now the whole family can eat together as one and he can stop complaining. Malicious compliance is absolutely called for here. Not the asshole. Your husband is abusive and controlling and toxic. Am I the asshole for kicking my friend out of my bedroom so my wife could take a nap? Throwaway account. So, I 28 male have a wife 27 female who works full-time as a CNA while she is in school to become an autopsy technician. She works a lot. She is constantly picking up extra shifts, working doubles and even triples. She does all that on top of going to school full-time. Because of that, she often takes a nap after work. Well, yesterday, I had a friend over who I will call E. My wife and E do not get along as E makes her uncomfortable, but she and I don't prevent one another from seeing friends just because one of us doesn't like the other's friend. E was over at mine and my wife's house playing video games when my wife calls to tell me she's on her way home from work. She sounds exhausted and I asked her if she felt okay to drive, and if not, I'd come pick her up from work and go back together the car later. She says she's fine to drive and that she'll see me later. I said okay and told her I loved her. E and I go back to playing video games. It is worth mentioning that the only TV my wife and I have is in our bedroom. I was laying on the bed playing and E was sitting in my desk chair. About 15 minutes or so later I hear my wife come in the house and call out to let me know she was home. I come into the living room and give her a kiss. She all but collapses into my arms, exhausted to the point she couldn't even walk to the bedroom. I ask her if she's okay and she says is yay, just a long day at work. I really need a nap. I nodded and told her to come lay down in the bed. When we get to the bedroom I politely tell E that he needed to leave as my wife was exhausted and we could play later that night. E asks why he needs to leave and why my wife can't just sleep while he and I keep playing. I explain that it was just a game and that my wife and her needs came first. E then asks why my wife couldn't just take a nap on our living room couch. I told him I wasn't making her sleep on the sofa just because he wanted to keep playing. E gets pissed and slammed his controller down on the dresser and goes to leave. Before he does, he turns to my wife and tells her, I'll bet you're happy he always feels like he has to pick you over anyone else. He leaves and slams the door on the way out. My wife turns to me and starts to apologize, saying she could have just slept on the couch. I tell her no, she couldn't have, and tell her to get some rest. Later that night my other friends are blowing up my phone saying things along the lines of brothers before hoes and saying it was rude to kick E out just so my wife could sleep. All of my married friends, however, are on my side, saying my wife's needs come first before my friends. E is now saying he won't speak to me until I apologize, so am I the asshole? Not the asshole, but you need to get better friends. They sound awful. Will I be the asshole if I call the police on my 13-year-old son? My son, 13 male, has repeatedly stolen from us over the past 2 years. Each time he has denied it, even when we have found proof it was him. Last year he took my husband's, male 48, bank card, added it to his Google account on an old phone, and then spent $300 on a downloaded basketball game. We found it by accident when we found him on the phone, did a search of his Google account, and found the card linked to it. He completely denied it was him and blamed his younger brother, male 10. His brother has his own phone and never uses his older brother's. There were consequences, we grounded him and took the old phone off him. The new phone is on Google Family Link, so we have a lock to prevent him buying anything. Yesterday we discovered that someone had made 2 payments on our credit card, one for a laptop for $2,000, which was declined, and the other for a bike for $3,000, which went through. We spoke to our credit card company and they refused to refund the money as we had been to the store before. The $2,000 attempted spend was at a store we use, but where we have never used the card before, hence it was declined. We went to the bike store where someone had spent $3,000 and they agreed to refund the money, minus the admin fee they get charged for refunds. They told us the order was placed online and printed the order for it. They said that it was a click and collect order. It had my husband's name on it, but my son's email address and telephone number. They said that they phoned the number after the order was made yesterday and spoke to the person who placed the order. They said that the person was clearly a child and was unhappy when they said that the cardholder had to be present when the bike was collected. We checked my son's email and there was no evidence of an order being placed, but there was evidence on his call log of a 2-minute call with the bike shop the day before. We also found an email from the computer shop in his email, and when we clicked on the account information, it opened in his Safari and had his username and password saved. When we went into the account, the $2,000 computer was in the basket. Despite all the evidence against him, he has blamed his younger brother. His younger brother was on my laptop, in the lounge with me when the 2 incidents happened, so we know it was not him. My husband had left his wallet out, and the card was still there, so we know the card has not been dropped/stolen. My eldest swears blind it was not him. This is a significant amount of money that we cannot afford, and we are very lucky to have got most of it. My question is, will I be the asshole if I go to the police? Before trying to scare him, consulting a child psychologist would be your best move. They can assess the problem and guide you from there. Am I the asshole for telling my fiance to get over himself? I'm engaged to my fiance, Sam 41, and we're getting married soon. I will say that he was married before and had a 13-year-old son who passed away 4 years ago. Let me tell you, he is still pretty much grieving. Not judging him for that, but his grieving can and will cloud his thinking sometimes. We're currently in the wedding planning phase. He asked that we reserve a chair at the venue for his deceased son. I was dumbfounded when I heard this, but he said that he knows his son will be there for him spiritually and he'd like to reserve a seat for him out of respect and to make him feel included. I tried to be gentle because this seemed insane and told him we can't do that because guests will be asking questions and will think he's mentally unstable. I asked him to let go of this idea, but he offered a compromise by leaving the last chair, in the very back, empty so no one will notice. I felt uneasy and asked him to just let it go, but he kept bringing it up, saying he gets a say since it's his wedding and his son was and will always be family. I had a fight with him telling him it's my wedding too and I don't people to laugh at us. He said I have nothing to lose if I say yes and that I'm being selfish. I snapped and told him to get over himself and he got quiet suddenly and stopped arguing, then shut down completely. I then heard him sob while he was smoking outside and refused to speak to me, didn't even let me sit with him. He has been like this ever since the fight and has been avoiding me. I could have blown this out of proportion, but I thought his request will weird out many guests and make our wedding a laughing stock. You're the asshole. A wedding is about both of you. He offered a compromise. You're putting your foot down. Why? What he wants is harmless and also really sweet. Guests will be asking questions and will think he's mentally unstable. I don't people to laugh at us. So, don't invite us to your wedding? I'm sorry, but given how callous you're being, I'd be surprised if there even is a wedding now. Am I the asshole for blowing up on my mom when she didn't go along with the plan to make Mother's Day about my wife this year? My wife and I had our first baby 10 months ago, so this is her first Mother's Day as a mom. We talked about expectations and she said that she wants the actual day to be about her from now on, because our moms both had plenty of Mother's Days and our nuclear family takes priority. For some background, Mother's Day usually consists of splitting the day between the two families. My mom picks what she wants for the day, and sometimes it isn't even kid-friendly. This is her second grandchild. My sister, who is a mom, does some stuff in the morning with her family, but then everything else is about my mom. Also, my mom and wife really don't like each other. My mom doesn't act want it, but they've never liked each other and I can see them both physically cringing when they are together. I can get that. I was a little nervous about how both of our families would react. My Mill is having a hard time with it, but said she agrees. My Mill picked another date for us to celebrate her though, and it was all good. I told my mom and she said it was fine, but my stepdad was making comments under his breath. I asked my mom which alternative date she wanted and she said she doesn't celebrate things on other days and I can do whatever I want, but if I don't come to the family thing, She isn't going to have a fake Mother's Day just for us. I tried explaining that it would still be a celebration and we want to do something for her. My mom said it was fine and she didn't want to. Then my younger sister walked in and my stepdad was like, "Do you know what this asshole is doing?" My sister began yelling at me, so I was blunt that my wife takes priority now and I refuse to 1. Make her uncomfortable, 2. Spend Mother's Day at a winery when kids can't drink. My mom told us all to shut up and went into the kitchen. I followed her and asked if she was hurt and she said no, but she doesn't like to open up. I explained that we wanted to do something, so please pick another day, and she said she had already said no and leave her alone. I knew my wife was going to take that badly, so honestly I lost my temper a bit and screamed at her that she is acting like a 2-year-old. She is always selfish, picking stuff that inconveniences the actual kids, and she doesn't even deserve much because she is a lame grandmother, never visits, never helps. I did apologize right after, but she was just like okay and rolled her eyes. Everyone sucks here, and I mean everyone. Y'all are acting like a bunch of children, regardless of your ages. Your mom for demanding that her grown children fawn over her on Mother's Day. Stepdad for getting your sister going when it isn't even about him. Your wife for demanding that the grandmas be ignored. Heck, send a card, make a phone call, have flowers delivered but don't ignore. You for flying off the handle because mom didn't react the way you wanted her to. Screaming at mom that she is acting like a 2-year-old while demonstrating that you are acting like a 2-year-old.